Welcome, my fellow weeaboos, to my 7 Deadly Sins Strength and Power tier list. This is a series that has had a lot of ups and downs, but it still has a place in the otaku organ I call a heart. A lot of my early videos were 7 Deadly Sins manga chapter reviews, and now that the anime is completely over and the Cursed by Light movie's finally out, I think it's time to make a tier list on it. I limited myself into fitting all of the characters into 10 total tiers, so some of these tiers could have definitely been split up a little bit more. But if I did that, the pictures would be too small for you to see. I'll be basing my rankings mainly on feats, but power levels will be taken into consideration as well. Before we get into the first tier, there's a hidden tier called the Mustache Manly tier. The only one on it is Escanor without his powers of sunshine, with a power level of 15. He somehow managed to hold off the Indra spawn better than the disappointing Holy Knight trio, over 100 times stronger than him. Starting at the Apprentice Holy Knight tier is the Master of Scraps, Hawk. For most of the series, his power level was around 30, but he was strong enough to knock down a metal prison door and take out multiple guards. In the movie Cursed by Light, he has overcome the inhospitable land of Purgatory and even took out a Purgatory beast, so he's possibly much higher now. Veronica is in the process of being trained to be a Holy Knight by Gila, and has a power level of 80. Margaret has a power level of 110 and managed to knock away some white demons. White demons can have a power level from 150 to 250. Lord Twigo was an apprentice Holy Knight who was able to cut a small force down with a single slash, and when his own attack was reflected back at him with 2 times power, it made a pretty big explosion. He was an apprentice Holy Knight, and meliodas said real Holy Knights were way worse than him, so the Holy Knights above him automatically scale higher, even if they're featless. Old Jude from the Weird Fangs did with Stab Bon, but even a kid with a pitchfork could do that. We never really got to see him in action, but King Bartro Leonis had a power level of 530. Kane was a Holy Knight of Danafall with fire magic. He was no match for base Meliodas, even with his powers sealed. Marmus had gravity magic, which was able to affect characters like Diane, Meliodas, and Hendrickson. Frisia had a power level of 440 and controlled bugs that shoot acid. Ruin had a power level of 420, and his powers of illusion can confuse his enemies and make them fight each other. He withstood multiple hits from sealed base Meliodas, though those probably weren't his full power. Wineheat, Jillian, and Hugo are members of the Roar of Dawn, who are hyped up as being the replacement group for the 7 Deadly Sins, and they're likely higher than the characters below. Wineheat has illusion magic and can enhance his arrow to the point Meliodas was worried for Gother, though he ended up catching it with one hand. Jillian used her magic to damage Demon Dale's arm and restrain King for a bit. Hugo damaged and knocked over Dale, and had no hesitation in asking Simon to cut his own arm off when he started turning to stone. He's the only Sapphire-ranked Holy Knight in this tier, with the others being Ruby, so since there's nothing else to really compare them, I put him higher. Golgius' power of invisibility makes him a tricky opponent to deal with, even giving base Meliodas some problems. He's also a coward who has no problems trying to get his opponents with sneak attacks. He might not be the strongest in this tier, but I don't see how anyone in this tier deals with his invisibility. Moving on to the Holy Knight tier, we have Blue Demons. Their power levels range from 400 to 1300. Simon defeated a Blue Demon, so I put him one spot higher. Dogetto was a Platinum-ranked Holy Knight who had a power level of 860. He didn't do much besides get beat up by Meliodas and killed by Grey Road. Deldry has a power level of 930, and the ability to make people fall in love with her by kissing them. Her only combat feat is stabbing a blue demon. Ochre demons have power levels from 800 to 1100. Hawk with his power of Transport has varying strengths and abilities, with his highest recorded power level being 1030 in his red demon form, where he even managed to survive a kick from Derriere. Red demons have a power level from 1000 to 1300. Having immense physical strength, the ability to shoot massive fire blasts, can take souls from people, and fly. Arden has a power level of 1320, and when his arrows hit their target, their cost of magic for using their abilities goes up, and this power stacks with the number of arrows landed. His arrows could pierce Fraudrinwell and Dreyfus' body, as well as white and ochre demons. Orange demons have power levels of 1300 to 1600. Gustav was a Holy Knight with ice magic. His younger sister Jericho unlocked her own ice magic after his death, and with it was able to defeat white, red, and orange demons. Before unlocking this magic, she would have been in the tier below, right next to Twigo, with a power level of 280. Gila has a power level of 1350. With Demon Blood and her Sacred Treasure, she was able to give Meliodas, Diane, and Bon some trouble. She was able to hurt blue, red, and gray demons throughout the Holy War. Griamore has a power level of 1520, and shield magic that could trap Gila and Jericho, as well as block attacks from blue, red, and gray demons. Even a desperate Dreyfus couldn't punch through. Diane had trouble with it as well, but was able to punch through it when serious. Waio is a Platinum-ranked Holy Knight and has a power level of 1710. He blocked an attack from Fraudron and Dreyfus' body, and even knocked him out, though he did have his magic sealed. He also cut a Copper Demon. Death Pierce was a Diamond-ranked Holy Knight and has a power level of 1690. He one-shot an Orange Demon, survived a hit from a Copper Demon, and has an ability that allows him to delay magic activation. His power level may be slightly lower than Yu's, but he survived the blast from Fraudron and Dreyfus' body that Yu and the others needed saving from. The next tier is the Great Holy Knight tier. Gurheed had a power level of 2370 and managed to defeat an Orange Demon. Elaine, before growing her wings, had a power level of 2830. She was able to bully Gurheed and casually beat the Marakia assassins. Hauser initially had a power level of 1910, but after training achieved a power level of 2350. He's been shown to easily beat red demons, but still has trouble against gray ones. Gilthunder had a power level of 1970, but trained alongside Hauser and it grew to 2330. Even before his training, he got the better of Hendrickson and forced Meliodas to activate his demon mark to stop his strike. Slater had a power level of 2790. His ability Overpower can freeze people in place, and it even worked on Hendrickson's Grey Demon form. He pinned Meliodas, defeated multiple Holy Knights, and an Ochre Demon. Dale, after becoming a demon monster, had a power level of 2490 and gave Meliodas, Bon, and King some trouble before Meliodas decided to kill him. Slater admitted that if he and the Roars of Dawn fought him, one of them would die, though they would take his head by the end of it. Hellbroom had a power level of 1400, but could become far stronger than that when enhanced by the other Holy Knights using his Link ability. He was able to defeat Hauser and Gila, as well as hold off Berserk Meliodas and give King some trouble. Vivian was Merlin's apprentice and had a power level of 2580. Like her master, she has a bunch of broken abilities such as Teleportation and Perfect Cube, which could stop Meliodas and Slater. She defeated an Earthcrawler by freezing it, and one of those things gave Deanne, Gilthunder, and Hauser trouble. She also kept Gilthunder a prisoner for a while. Hendrickson had a power level of 2650 and killed a Grey Demon with the assistance of Hauser and Gilthunder, who he beat up during their druid training. When he had red demon blood in him, his powers were amplified, gained the ability to generate from grievous wounds, fly, and use Hellblaze. However, after becoming good again, Hendrickson trained with the druid, so it's possible he surpassed his previous red demon form. Either way, both versions of Hendrickson are probably around this spot. Denzel Leonis was the assistant Great Holy Knight with a power level of 2870. He held his own against Fraudron and Dreyfus' body and survived his blast. He has the horrifying ability that causes his target to be possessed by the ghosts of the people they have killed until death. Grey Demons have power levels ranging from 2700 to 3200. It took Hendrickson, Gilthunder, Hauser, and Griamore to take one down. They have the deadly abilities Dark Snow and Dark Nebula. Zaratros had a power level of 3060, one-shot a red demon, and gave Fraudron and Dreyfus' body trouble and purged him out of his younger brother's body where Hendrickson failed. Gother, before recovering his memories, had a power level of 3100. He was able to catch a fully charged arrow from Wineheat, cut Demon Dale's head off with his hand, and tank Deanne's punches. He could enter people's minds, alter or erase memories, or cause illusions. Deanne, before being sent back in time, had a power level of 3250. She outmatched Gother in combat even without her Sacred Treasure, and with her Sacred Treasure she easily defeated Hellbroom. Base Meliodas, with most of his power taken away from him, had a power level of 3370. His ability Full Counter allows him to send back any magical attack at double the strength, and with Revenge Counter he can take all the damage he's absorbed and send it back at his attackers. He has the ability to regenerate and use the ability Hellblaze that can even scar the Immortal Bond. Deanne with Gideon could give him a run for his money, and I suppose she could be argued up to the bottom of the next tier, but I would still back Meliodas in a fight to the death, even if he's restricted to his base form. Next up is the Demon tier, which is full of characters and creatures beyond the level any normal Holy Knight can usually attain. Nanashi was able to one-shot an Earthcrawler and stomp a Grey Demon. Gelda has a power level of 4080. She was able to one-shot another vampire named Ren, who had a power level of 3070, and managed to slice Meliodas' helmet back when his power level should have been over 30,000. She has high-level regeneration, having no problem with getting her head torn off, and was able to assist Zeldris in his fight against Dahlia. Copper Demons have a power level from 3500 to 4500. They've gotten the better of Hauser, Gila, Jericho, as well as many other Holy Knights, and one managed to blast back Matrona. I didn't put him on the list, but the Vampire King Izrath should be about here with a power level of 4890. Nero Bastla was a divine lance corporal of the goddesses, and was strong enough to make Denzel sacrifice himself to be her vessel. She one-shot a red and grey demon at the same time, and slightly hurt Darieri with Arc. King at the beginning of the series had a power level of 4190. He was stated and shown to be stronger than the other Sins when they didn't have their sacred treasures, and his Spirit Spear Chastaful gives him a lot of versatility. The Endura spawn were strong enough to stomp Gilthunder, Hauser, and Griamore at the same time. Albions have a power level of 5,500. Meliodas without a sacred treasure could only scratch them, and beginning of series King was fighting a losing battle against one. In the anime, one managed to push Matrona back. Hendrickson with Grey Demon Blood had a power level of 5,800. He has the abilities Dark Snow and Dark Nebula, and was durable enough to where Meliodas couldn't pierce him with his sword, and resorted to using Revenge Counter on him. Silver Demons have a power level of 8,000, and one defeated Griamore. Kath before eating Arthur's arm had a power level of 10,010. He had Telekinesis that temporarily distracted Cusack and Zeldris, and ate Peronia. Matrona has a power level of 7,600. With one attack she took out a bunch of demons, including multiple grey ones and a copper one. She even managed to knock away Monspeet and restrain Galland. Dreyfus' power level was 3,000, but had one of the most potent magical attacks that was even able to pierce Fraudrin and force him into full size. He later obtains Fraudrin's full size ability and stomps a silver demon with it. After awakening his true Spirit Chastaful, King's power level became double that of an Albion's, putting it at 11,000, and with this new power he one-shot the Albion he was fighting. At the top of the demon tier is Meliodas at full power. Well, before he actually got his full powers back. With just his demon mark, his power level is 4,400 and would probably be right next to beginning of series King. After obtaining his sacred treasure Lostbane, he was able to slice Albions up like butter, even while in base form, so with Lostbane he would probably go right next to Matrona. With his full Berserk power he had a power level of 10,300, though it was stated to be 13,000 in the anime. Moving up to the low commandment tier, we're starting to get to the heavy hitters. Grey Road had a power level of 39,000, but she doesn't really have any offensive capabilities. She can keep her opponents from leaving the battlefield, take their 5 senses, and transform to look like other people. Her commandment is pacifism, and if anyone kills anything in front of her, they die. She can create demons and shoot out bugs, and if her opponents kill them, they die as well. However, her commandment doesn't work on other commandments, archangels, or characters who don't age, so almost everyone above her is resistant. Dubs was a master craftsman of the Giant Clan, and had a remote control scythe that could cut his opponents down, a shield that automatically protected him, and a staff that could imprison people into dimensional space. He also rides on a bird that could easily kill lesser demons and breathe out a poisonous mist. He was stated to not be a fighter, and when up against Zeldris he didn't stand a chance. He might be able to imprison some of the characters above him with his dimensional staff, but Meliodas only couldn't break out of it because he was trying to use the weapon Dubs created. And beyond that he really can't be scaled accurately, so I kept him near the bottom of this tier. Gother, after regaining his memories, has a power level of 35,400. He could disconnect Melascula's nerves for 10 seconds, and his spirit attack comboed with King dropped Chandler's magic by more than half. He reacted to the Demon King's attack to save Elizabeth, and took a beating from 3 Commandant Mael and survived. He also used his nerve-disrupting ability on the Supreme Deity. His lack of offensive feats keep him from being any higher. Elaine, after growing her wings, attained a power level of 21,050, and with one magical attack defeated a bunch of demons, including Copper Demons and Albions. She has a high attack power, but her weak lolly body is vulnerable, which is why she's right below her lover, clinging onto him in the tier list. Bond, before going into Purgatory, had a power level of 3,220, but with Hunterfest he can take the physical strength of the creatures around him, and this even allowed him to overpower Galland. He can also use Fox Hunt to take his target's hearts from them, which he was able to do on both Galland and Melascula. He also has the ability Zero Sun, which let him walk by all the commandments unnoticed and almost destroy all of Melascula's hearts. These abilities make him extremely deadly, and his immortality makes him almost unbeatable. Not to mention he has an even record arm wrestling with an unsealed Meliodas, and we even see him beat him on screen. Him and Meliodas were also the only two strong enough to break through the maze Droll created. He can be defeated by having his soul taken from him though, and he hit his Hunterfest capacity fighting base Galland, and was so exhausted afterwards that he couldn't move, so any character in the tiers above would probably be beyond his limits. Galland had a power level of 27,000 and was able to stomp a sealed power Meliodas with Lostbane when he was going all out, as well as Deanne and the Camelot Knights helping him. At this time his magical powers weren't even recovered and his power level was only 26,000. Fraudrin had a power level of 31,000 and managed to hold his own against a clone of Meliodas with a power level of 30,000. He has the power full size, which makes him big, and can use his arms to stab people. Colma Dios was defeated pretty easily by King and Deanne when they were in Gloxinia and Droll's bodies, though they did have some help from Meliodas. The fact that Meliodas had to protect them with a full counter, and he was chosen as one of the 10 commandments over Fraudrin, leaves me to believe he should be higher. After regaining his powers Merlin sealed away, Meliodas in his base form had a power level of 32,500. He was able to completely stomp base Galland, and with Lostbane he was chopping off Droll's arms like they were nothing, though Droll was just injured by Escanor. Like mentioned previously, his Hellblaze is one of the only things that can permanently scar Bond. Using Revenge Counter, he has a good chance of beating some of the characters in the tier above. First up in the High Commandment tier is Galland while using Critical Over. With this technique, Galen's power level shoots up to 40,000, and with this form, he managed to stop and throw back a magical attack from Tarmiel. He was saving this form for his rematch with Meliodas, so he must have believed he could win, and his higher power level backs that up. Molaskil is a hard character for me to place. She has a power level of 38,000, but her Cocoon of Darkness was able to trap Meliodas when his power level was over 60,000, and he needed Assault Mode to break free. She also said it could trap all the commandments including Zeldris as long as he doesn't activate his power the Demon King gave him. She's also an expert at ripping souls right out of her enemies, and can bring back the dead to help fight for her. Merlin said if she didn't go into her snake form, the fight between her and the Sins might have went differently, and based off this, she could be argued higher. However, it's her fault she went into her snake form, and she was beaten up by Diane and King. King, after growing his little baby wings, had a power level of 41,600. He could easily stomp copper demons, destroy multiple Albions at once, damage Molaskil in her snake form, almost match half-power base Chandler, and landed some hits against 3 Commandment Mael. King's supersized lover Diane at the end of the series is next. After her time travel shenanigans, her base power level became 8,800, but when she shakes her giant booty and starts dancing, she could raise it much higher, with the highest recorded number being 48,000. Bond failed to snatch Gideon away from her when she was possessed, and she was strong enough to smash Molaskil's teeth out while she was in snake form. Her most impressive feat is Mother Creation, where she even knocked back the Demon King while he was in his final form, and created a giant platform that towered over mountains. Droll had a power level of 54,000, but I assume that's with his dance amping him, because if not, his power level would have reached absurdly large levels while dancing. With heavy metal, he could block attacks from Demon Mark Meliodas after his powers were returned, and held off Final Form Chandler along with Gloxinia better than Diane and King could. Gloxinia had a power level of 50,000. I put him above Droll because of how he gave Meliodas more trouble, as well as his versatility. His ability to heal himself and his allies is also really useful. Dariuri had a power level of 52,000, and with her move Combo Star, she could increase the force of each consecutive blow by 200,000 pounds, and was able to mess up Demon Mark Meliodas' arms, and overpowered him with 54 strikes. Her silent lover Munspeet had a power level of 53,000, and is a master of Hellfire. His technique Trickstar allows him to switch objects including himself with things of similar size. With this move, he was even able to get the better of Estarossa. Meliodas, after getting his powers back and activating his Demon Mark, had a power level of 56,000, and was beating Droll and Gloxinia at the same time. Estarossa is the first character in the low Archangel tier, and funnily enough, he's actually an Archangel, he just doesn't know it. His power level was 60,000, and he was able to hold his own against Escanor for a bit before it got too close to noon, even making him bleed. He was also able to partially get up against Assault Mode Meliodas' magic, when even Zeldris couldn't, and Cusack stated his abilities were on the same level as Zeldris'. His magic full counter allows him to reflect all physical attacks at twice their original power, and his Commandment of Love will make almost anyone who holds hate in their heart against him helpless. Munspeet was able to pull one over on him, but in most scenarios he wouldn't stand a chance, and Estarossa was able to one-shot him once he got a hold of him. His Archangel body also made him resistant to angel attacks, and withstood Elizabeth's arc and flew right through Sariel and Tarmiel's attacks. Merlin's another tough character to place. Her power level is apparently only 4,710, but she's one of the most broken characters in the series due to her Infinity magic, which even allowed her to overpower Final Form Chandler's Exterminate Ray. Not only that, due to the gifts from the Demon King and Supreme Deity, she's completely resistant to commandments and curses. She can teleport to keep her distance from her opponents, or protect herself or trap enemies with Perfect Cube, something the one Escanor and Assault Mode Meliodas were able to fight in without breaking. She can even infinitely pause people in time with Chrono Coffin. Her downfalls are low base power and durability, so if she doesn't have a front line to protect her, she can be somewhat vulnerable. Cusack and Chandler are the top-ranking demons, even stronger than the 10 Commandments. Even in their base forms, they're extremely powerful, with Cusack easily being able to break out of Merlin's ice magic. He could arguably be put below Estarossa, as Estarossa's full counter would be a pretty big counter to the physical fighter Cusack, though Estarossa doesn't really have a counter for Cusack's resonant ability, which allows him to take control of his opponent's body and force them to do the same movements he does. I have Chandler higher due to his versatility as a mage. He pretty much has all the same spells Merlin does, along with full counter. One of his most dangerous abilities is Absolute Order, where he can force his target to do whatever he says. Other notable abilities he has are Shrinking Magic, Illusions, Calling Down Meteors, and Summoning the Night, which makes demons stronger. When his magic was at less than half power, he was still outmatching King, who had a power level of 41,000. So it's likely his full power in his base form is around 80,000, which is another reason he and Cusack should be above Estarossa. Sariel and Tarmiel are about equals. With their Graces Ocean and Tornado, they're practically unbeatable to characters weaker than them. They stated they're about twice as strong as a commandment, and about as strong as Estarossa with 2 commandments, who had a power level of 88,000. Speaking of which, Estarossa with 2 commandments is next, as he was overpowering the 2 Archangels. Meliodas, after being revived without his emotions, had a power level of 60,000 in base form, so he would go right next to Estarossa. With his demon mark, if we use the multipliers it gave him at his other power levels, his power level would be somewhere between 78,000 and 115,500, so he should be somewhere around here. Escanor's power varies with the time of day, but throughout most of the day he would be right around here. He tanked Galen's critical overstrike with a power level of 50,000, which quickly rose to 60,000. Estarossa could only slightly damage him before being completely overwhelmed. Even during nighttime when he used Merlin as his son, his power level was 28,800, and when he grabbed his Sacred Axe Rita, his power was compared to Estarossa's. So if it's during the day, most of the characters in this tier are screwed, as it won't be long until Escanor's power will surpass theirs, if it already hasn't. Squealing his way into the bottom of the high Archangel tier is wild. He was strong enough to fight alongside Meliodas and Ban against the Demon King for over 60 years. In his base form he usually just got flicked away, but when he goes full throttle, he's actually able to do slight damage to the Demon King, though it's kind of a one and done move. Elizabeth with her full goddess powers was stated to be on the same level as Mael, Ludociel, and Meliodas. She was even able to throw around and do some damage to the Demon King in Zeldris' body in his initial form. Cusack and Chandler in their final forms have power levels of 168,000 and 173,000 respectively. Since Chandler has a higher power level and is more versatile with his magic, I put him higher. Mael with 4 commandments had a power level of over 200,000. With his light ball of love, he could create explosions that make people feel pleasure instead of pain and fall asleep for good. He can cancel illusions with the Bell of Truth, create illusions of his own with Incense of Purity, and cancel people's magic with the Scythe of Silence. With 3 commandments, he was fighting Tarmiel, Sariel, King, and Darieri at the same time, and when he was Estarossa with 3 commandments, he could do the same, so both of them would be around the bottom of this tier. Ludociel had a stated power level of 201,000. In Margaret's body, he was able to hold his own against Zeldris, Cusack, and Chandler, though he seemed to be a bit below all of them. When in his true form, he was able to go toe-to-toe with the original demon, and even had the edge over him at first. The original demon is the fusion of Cusack and Chandler, so it wouldn't be surprising if his power level was theirs combined at 341,000. However, his performance wasn't much better than Cusack or Chandler individually, so I kinda find that number questionable. He was able to overcome Escanor after noon had passed, even with the help of Merlin, and overcame Ludociel with his power of Crisis, which makes him stronger as he takes damage. The next spot represents all Indura. Monspeed and Darieri in their Endura forms were beating Ludociel at his peak worse than the original demon was. And the Enduro Baruja from the Prisoners of the Sky movie was stronger than all of the sins at that time combined, and the perfect cube can only block its attack once. Zeldris' recorded power level may only be 61,000, but his feats far exceed that number. With his ability Ominous Nebula, he was able to get the advantage on Ludociel, Escanor, and Merlin, and it even gave the one Escanor trouble, cracking his Divine Axe Rita and partially holding back his Divine Sword Escanor. He also destroyed the Demon King's Hermit of Moments with it. Even without that move, he's powerful enough to go toe-to-toe with Ludociel and Mael, arguably taking the edge over both of them. With the power the Demon King lent him, he had complete immunity to magic, which made him even more dangerous, though I don't know if he still has that power. He was even strong enough to temporarily restrain the Supreme Deity and help Meliodas kill her. Next is the Sin tier, and at the bottom is Mael with Sunshine. He was able to one-shot and almost kill the original demon, so it's a no-brainer he would go a tier above. He had trouble with Zeldris, but that was only because Zeldris was resistant to magical attacks. Dahlia with the power of Cheap Hope granted to him by the Supreme Deity was strong enough to one-shot the Endura Baruja, and stomp Zeldris pretty badly. The fact that Zeldris lasted longer against him is another reason I put him above the Endura in the tier below. Dahlia was stomped by post-Purgatory Meliodas with his demon mark, and Meliodas stated he fought fighters stronger than him while the one Escanor was being shown. King, after awakening his full magical powers, gained the ability to use multiple forms of Chastiful at the same time, and was able to easily defeat Mael with 4 commandments. He could fight and hold his own against the original demon and Zeldris while miles away, and his shield was strong enough to completely block a desperate Zeldris, and temporarily block the Demon King at full power, as well as the Supreme Deity's God Thunder. The Supreme Deity even complemented his attack, but basically said his type of magic wasn't very effective against her. The fact he fought against the Demon King and the Supreme Deity, while Mael was too afraid to fight either of them, leads me to believe he should be higher. Though I suppose Dahlia amped by the Supreme Deity and Mael near noon could both be above him. Ban, after surviving Purgatory, became strong enough to hold his own against the Demon King in Meliodas' body. He was later given his sacred treasure back, which made him even stronger. He was also the only one left standing after the Supreme Deity's second God Thunder. He's easily the 3rd strongest sin after Meliodas and Escanor while in the 1, who's also the next one on the list. In the 1 form, he defeated Assault Mode Meliodas, Zeldris, and even went blow for blow with the Demon King at full strength. This form only lasts a minute though, and the Demon King intentionally put his sword away and didn't use magic to make it a fair fight. The initial form of the Demon King in Zeldris' body was implied to be the same power as when the Demon King was in Meliodas' body by the man himself. In Meliodas' body, he was overpowering Ban and only started struggling when Meliodas was fighting him on the inside. He could one-shot Merlin's perfect cube and was completely resistant to magical attacks. Meliodas in his base form after Purgatory was strong enough to beat up the first form of the Demon King in Zeldris' body. He started losing to him when the Demon King transformed, and needed his Demon Mark to take the advantage over him in the manga, and in the anime used a combo attack with Elizabeth. Due to this, the second form of the Demon King in Zeldris' body is right above him. We have now reached the summit of the tier list, at the God tier. First up is the one ultimate Escanor. The Demon King literally got stuck in the man's abs, and then Escanor proceeded to pummel him. However, he needed help from the others when the Demon King broke free and resorted to using magic, and was only able to scratch the Demon King when he possessed Britannia. The time limit on this form is also limited, and it will kill him when it's over, so even if he could beat anyone on this tier, he would die as well, so he deserves to be last. Meliodas in his assault mode after Purgatory was able to outspeed the one ultimate Escanor in the final fight, and even in his regular Demon Mark mode, he was holding his own against the Demon King's final form in Zeldris' body. He also managed to kill the Supreme Deity with some help from Zeldris. Before Purgatory, and back when he led the 10 Commandments, he would have been in the Sin tier, as he easily beat Zeldris, Estarossa, and Cusack at the same time, and matched Sunshine Mael in a movie prequel manga. He also stomped the one Escanor in the past, but Escanor likely grew stronger since then. When up against the one Escanor later on when he lost his memories, his power level was 142,000, and he got stomped by the one Escanor, so that version of him would be in the high Archangel tier, probably around the bottom of it. Kath, after eating one of Arthur's arms and absorbing part of the power of chaos, is a being that transcends the concept of life and death, and is completely immortal. He was taking on all the sins at the same time, and put all of them under a hallucination, which only Meliodas and Arthur broke out of. Arthur with the power of chaos is above him, since he was able to use his powers of chaos to swallow up Kath. At the beginning of this series, Arthur would have been in the Great Holy Knight tier, somewhere under Hendrickson since he lost one. He then trained with Nanatsu and became strong enough to defeat over 100 demons in a day. After drawing the sword Excalibur, he became strong enough to chop up Base Chandler and Cusack, and fight off Assault Mode Meliodas and Zeldris, though they were all holding back. At this point he was likely in the High Commandment tier. The Supreme Deity and Demon King are above Arthur and Kath because together they sealed away chaos, so individually they should be able to seal away a boy who doesn't know how to use its full power, or a cat with only a small percentage of it. I put the Supreme Deity below the Demon King because she lost quicker than he did against a weaker version of the 7 Deadly Sins, as Escanor wasn't there and Meliodas no longer had his Demon King powers. Meliodas still wasn't strong enough to defeat her alone though, so she would still be above his Assault Mode in power. She's also completely resistant to physical attacks. The Demon King pushed the 7 Deadly Sins to their limits, with Escanor using up his life force, rather than using Power Limit Break on all of them, and using a combo attack from all 7 of them multiplied many times over by multiple full counters to finally destroy him. Even then he technically wasn't completely killed, and Meliodas had to use up his Demon King powers to destroy him for good. He had the power of the Ruler, which made any damaging magical attacks strengthen and heal him. Meliodas in his Demon King form was stated to be stronger than the Demon King himself. I still can't forgive him for allowing Escanor to use the one ultimate before he even used his Demon King form. I know he didn't want to kill Zeldris, but he could have just beat on him or restrained the Demon King as he needed to until they got Zeldris out of him. It made no sense to have the other sins risk their lives and Escanor literally burn his life away to try and hold off the Demon King, while he wasn't even using his full power. At the top of the entire list is Chaos. This goes without saying, as Chaos is said to have created the world, along with the Demon King, Supreme Deity, Sacred Tree, Giants, and humans. As seen from Arthur and Kath, the power of Chaos has reality warping properties, and like Kath, Chaos should be beyond the concept of life and death. Wow, we're finally done. That was a long one. And technically it isn't even fully over, as the sequel series The Four Knights of the Apocalypse is in the midst of coming out. Whenever that series finishes, I'll probably make a tier list on that as well. I'll also be making tier lists for many more animes to come. Wasting my time creating these videos is my sin, and not subscribing to me is yours.